Well, good evening, everyone in Facebook land, and welcome to the Monday evening segment of Apopa Speaks, hosted by Dr. Sharon Apopa. The show will take a practical look at mental health issues confronting our community. The discussions will be built on a bio-biopsychosocial model of care. In other words, we will be looking and explaining topics, looking at what the Bible says, what psychology says, what sociology says, and what biology says. Today's topic, we're going to be dealing with Monday blues. Now, I'm sure all of you have at one point in time said that you have Monday blues. So tonight we're going to look at that. We're going to look at the sociology and psychology of it and how we as people in this community can deal with this issue. I want to start off with playing this song. It's a real old song, and it was written by the Young Rascals in 1967. I don't know how old you are, but if you're as old as I am, you probably remember this song. And it's called Grooving on a Sunday Afternoon. Just wanted to take a moment and listen to this song as we get ready to talk about Monday blues. Hope you will enjoy it. On a Sunday afternoon, couldn't get away too soon. Please forgive me if I start swaying to the music. I just love music. Anything we like to do. I say Maxine De Silva says she remembers that song. I'm sure that was one of her early hits and her early love songs back in the day. I want to give a shout out to Sister Maxine for receiving the Crystal Award yesterday for her book, When He Promised Me Heaven, but He Gave Me Hell. This was really a nice old hit from 1967 with the Young Rascals. Grooving on a Sunday afternoon. How many of us listening in today, we are grooving on a Sunday afternoon, and then all of a sudden about 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at Sunday night, we start to feel lethargic, we start to feel a sense of anxiety, we start to feel a sense of sadness, and we start to get distressed. We've been grooving all day on Sunday, lying out on the beach, eating lunch with our loved ones, going to church and worshiping God, and then when Sunday evening comes, we start to feel unwell. Well, if that's you or if that's somebody you know, it's probably because you have a case of the Monday blues. And so I wanted to start off with a segment about the Monday blues. What in the world are we talking about when we talk about the Monday blues? Well, the Monday blues refers to a set of negative emotions that people experience at the beginning of the work week. Yes, you're not by yourself. You probably thought, I'm the only one that gets up on Mondays and I don't want to go to work. We feel like the children, we just want to cry and kick and scream and pull the covers over our head and say, I'm not going to work today. Can somebody remind you that you're the boss? And so you say, oh, I guess I got to go into work. But this is the Monday blues, a set of negative emotions that people experience at the beginning of the work week. And these symptoms usually include feelings of anxiety, feelings of sadness, feelings of stress. And they're often described as a lack of enthusiasm, a loss of my, in the olden days, and if you know what this word means, please hit the like sign. But some people used to say a loss of my mojo. So that, it means that you lost your drive, you lost your energy, and you lost your passion to go and do the things that you used to do, or you'll get up and go. So on Monday mornings, where you were grooving on Friday, Saturday, you were grooving on Sunday, you were feeling so energized, and then like Monday morning, your energy is all set. You probably have a case of the Monday blues. Now, this is not just something that happens one week. There are always times that on once in a while, we don't feel like going in on a Monday. I mean, that's natural and that happens to all of us. But I'm talking about the person that every time Monday morning comes around, they do not feel like going to work. And they say, I have the Monday blues. So let's look at where this term came from. When I was doing some research online, I found out that the term Monday blues was initially said to have been invented by a British travel agency, and it was as used as a marketing tool. And so what was happening is this agency wanted to sell more tickets to warm climates in the winter. So they came up with this term of the Monday blues and referred to how people dealt with the coldest days in the winter months, which was usually identified as a particular Monday in the month. And so the original objective, like I said, was to sell tickets and all. But after a while, the term caught on, and it has now evolved into a culturally acceptable phrase of describing how one begins at the end, how one feels at the beginning of a work week. While many people may take this term lightly, I mean, somebody says, oh, I've got the Monday blues. Some people will laugh and make jokes and things about it. But we want to talk tonight about the fact that having Monday blues can be a very serious situation and be an indication of something more chronic or more serious going on in the life of the individual. But before we talk particularly about Monday blues, I want to talk about some other ways that we describe ourselves as blue. So some people talk about having the winter blues, and some people just say, I feel blue. The winter blues is more commonly or more clinically known as something as seasonal affective disorder. This is a type of depression related to changes in seasons. It usually starts in the fall and goes through to the winter months. So when somebody says they have the winter blues, that's different from saying I have the Monday blues. Monday blues are usually situationally caused by something that's going on in the marketplace. But winter blues is usually a clinical diagnosis or clinical depression that is related to changes in seasons. And like I said, for people who have winter blues, it usually starts in the fall and it goes throughout the winter months and it tends to lift as we come into the spring and to the summer months. Now, specific causes of winter blues or seasonal affective disorder, as the clinical term is not really known. But there are some factors that we know that are attributed to people's experiencing seasonal affective disorder. And one factor is said to be our biological clock. So what we have is that in the winter months, we know we have longer periods of dark and we have very few periods of light. And so the theories say that during these periods when we have all this length of darkness, it may disrupt our body's internal clock and lead us to feelings of depression. So when it's really dark, or when we see the sun up, we get energized, we want to get up, we know it's time to go, it's time to rock and roll. But when it's winter and it's dark, our clock gets turned off. It's kind of like if you travel. So sometimes I remember one time when I was traveling. I traveled to Kenya. So when I got there, of course, the time was 8 hours different from Bermuda. And when they wanted to go to bed, I was ready to get up, and vice versa. And so after a while, that can really affect you when your biological clock is all messed up. Now, in that type of circumstance, the trick that I found was that I had to tell myself to work on the time frame the time zone that I was in. So I couldn't any longer think, okay, this is such and such a time in Bermuda, I should be doing this. No, I had to actually condition my mind to think about the time zone that I was in, and then command my body to work within the time zone that I was in. Otherwise than that, my whole life would have been helter skelter. When they're eating dinner, I would have been looking for my scrambled eggs and vice versa. So seasonal affective disorder is similar that because of the loss of light, it has an impact on some people's biological clock, and so their whole sleeping patterns and things get out of whack. And so we know that lack of sleep and things like that is one of the symptoms that affect us and can lead to issues of depression. So that's one of the factors, the causal factors. Another causal factor is the change in the serotonin levels in our bodies. And so the theory says that reduced sunlight can cause a drop in our serotonin levels. And our serotonin levels affects our mood. So when we have drops in our serotonin level, it means that we have could have what we call a low mood. And so for one of the things, like I said, and these are all related to the fact that we have longer periods of darkness and less periods of light. So one of the things is the impact on our biological clock. Another thing is the impact on our serotonin levels. And the other thing is the impact on our melatonin levels. Now, our melatonin levels are associated with our sleep patterns. And it's also said that for some people, the lack of light affects the amount of melatonin they have, and so it disrupts their ability to go to sleep. So we can see that seasonal affective disorder, as opposed to, or what they call the winter blues, is a clinical diagnosis as opposed to Monday blues, which tends to be more sociological and situational in nature. Now, there's one other thing that we talk about when we say we're feeling blue, and that's usually people who are having symptoms related to major clinical depression. And the difference between seasonal affective disorder or depression that is caused by changes in seasons and a major clinical depression, which is that a major clinical depression is not controlled by climate changes. So that's the big difference. The symptoms, as we will see, are very similar in both of the diagnoses, but they're in the clinical depression, there's usually no relationship between that and climate changes. So all year round, persons who have clinical depression experience the symptoms and have the challenges all year round, as opposed to the others who start out in the fall with their depressive symptoms and usually pick up and have an increased mood when the summer months come. So let's look a bit about when somebody says, I've got the blues. And when they say I've got the blues, they're usually saying, I have symptoms of clinical depression. And so what are some of the signs and symptoms of clinical depression? People who have the blues or signs of clinical depression are usually people who feel depressed most of the day, nearly every day. So when somebody says, oh, I'm feeling blue, and they're just having a down moment, that is not clinical depression. But for these people, out of 7 days, they at least 5 out of 7 days, they're feeling low of mood. And out of 24 hours, say maybe 15 at least of those hours, they're feeling low of mood. That is one of the signs of persons who got the blues who are also clinically depressed. The next sign is the feelings of hopelessness and worthlessness. People who have the blues or who are clinically depressed tend to see life as feeling hopeless, and basically they feel that no matter what I do, life is not going to change, or they feel that no matter how I try to improve myself and no matter what I do to enhance myself as a human being, I still don't feel like I'm worth anything. So people with signs of depression, clinical depression, first they feel hopeless and worthless, and most days they feel low mood the majority of the day for more than not days of the week. The other thing is that these people feel very low of energy. They find it very difficult to get up and motivate themselves to do what they need to do within the day. They have a loss of interest in activities, and so that means that the things that they used to enjoy doing, they no longer have any interest in doing those things anymore. They have sleep problems. They usually have change in appetite, so they're either eat less or they may eat more, and they have difficulty concentrating. Those are some of the signs and symptoms of people who say, I have got the blues, who have a clinical diagnosis of depression. Persons who have the winter blues or seasonal affective disorder, they also have low energy. They tend to want to sleep a lot, where people with clinical depression may find that they can't hardly sleep. People with seasonal affective disorder, they sleep a lot. They tend to overeat, they tend to gain weight, and they tend to be socially withdrawn. And a lot of that has to do as well with we all know that when it's dark and it's dreary and it's cold, none of us really feel motivated sometimes to get up and go. But most of us can pull ourselves together and go out and do the things that we need to do if we don't have this particular diagnosis. So I hope you can see that Monday blues, winter blues, and having the blues are three very, very different discussions, but all of them have significance, and all of them can lead to serious lack of functioning within the individual, and so all of them should be taken extremely seriously. And all of them should be taken extremely seriously. And so when we want to go back now to looking at Monday blues, because that's our topic for tonight, Monday blues. But we wanted to make sure that those who were listening in knew that there are three different types of blues: the winter blues, the Monday blues, and the having the feelings of blue, and that all of them had to do with mood disorders, um, clinical disorders in two of them, and then in the Monday blues, it has to look more likely at situational disorders. So when we say we have the Monday blues, what's really going on with us? What happens when we can't get ourselves motivated on a Monday, but basically, during the rest of the week, I guess until we come to hump day, and I guess we'll have to do hump day another night. But Monday, we got Monday blues. Tuesday, we tend to make it through work. Wednesday, we got hump day, and nothing really happens about Thursday. And then Friday is thank God it's Friday day. And we tend to be rejoicing about the fact that we're coming down to the end of a work week. So a lot of our mood and our dysregulation of mood seems like it may be associated with things that are going on in the workplace. So if you're having Monday blues, what is it that might be going on? What can I do? So the first thing we have to look at is identifying the problem. What is possibly going on while I have Monday blues? And one of the things we have to look at is how we feel about the job. What are relationships like at the job? Um, a lot of times people have Monday blues because they're dreading going back to work. because of some adverse situation within their job environment. Sometimes it may be a problem that they're having with their boss. Sometimes it may be a negative coworker that they want to avoid, or sometimes it's a task that they would rather not do. And so as they come down to Sunday evenings, their thoughts, which were happy and bright all over the weekend, start to shift back to those things that they would like to avoid at the job, and it starts to affect how they feel, because you know that how we think affects how we feel, and eventually how we think and feel affects our behavior. So on Sunday nights, what normally happens is we start to position our minds to think forward into the next week. And immediately we think about, oh my God, I'm going to go in and I'm going to deal with A, or I'm going to deal with B, or and I'm going to deal with that negative coworker again. And so we have a desire to avoid all of these unpleasant experiences. So we start feeling stressed. We start getting anxious. And a lot of times we feel this way because we haven't figured out the skill sets or the coping skills to deal with these particular individuals. So first thing we need to do if we want to deal with the Monday blues is really identify the problem. What is really going on? What is it that I'm afraid of dealing with? What stresses are there in the job that I'm having difficulty overcoming? What relationships at the job is that I would rather not deal with? And so we have to become very, very self-aware. And that means we have to sit down and really be honest with ourselves about what is going on, as well as being honest with ourselves about our skill sets. There are many, many people in the marketplace today that are not just in the marketplace, in families, in churches. There are many people that are conflict avoidant. And by conflict avoidant, I mean that they would do anything in the world before confronting another individual. Most times, people who are conflict avoidant are people who have had very negative experiences with conflict. And that may be in their families of origin, where maybe they were in a family relationship, and every time conflict came or people disagreed, it was followed by acts of violence. And so as a child, they found out that confronting conflict leads to physical harm, and so they became conflict avoidant. Some people are conflict avoidant because in the past, when they tried to have conflict and deal with conflict, people have abandoned them or have misjudged them. And so, for fear of being alone or isolated, they prefer not to deal with conflict. And there are some people that have their own anger issues. And so they're not fearful of what the other person would do, but they're fearful of what they will do if the conflict is not resolved in their way. So sometimes people are fearful of going to work and have the Monday blues because they're just purely conflict avoiding. Well, we have hope for you tonight. There are things that you can do to learn how to positively deal with conflict, and that will be something that we will be discussing in later sessions as we come on. How do we deal with conflict in a positive way? How can we reframe how we look at conflict to stop seeing it as a negative, but to see it as a positive? Now, also, when we're looking at why we have the Monday blues, the causal problem is very, very important in helping us to determine the solution. So say, for example, if the reason I'm having Monday blues is because there are particular tasks that happen every Monday and I can't stand to deal with it. So maybe every Monday you have a staff meeting and you know that there's somebody that's coming to the staff meeting that's just constantly oppositional, and you just didn't have a good time dealing with them. Well, it may mean that if that's the case, maybe you need to prepare for Mondays better by shifting that unpleasant task to another day in the week. So it may mean that you don't have to have staff meeting on Monday anymore. Put staff meeting to Wednesdays or hump day or something. So once we know what the problem is, then we can start having a solution. Maybe it's on Mondays we have a meeting with our boss and there's always unpleasantness. If we want to have a better start to a week, we may ask our boss if we can finish the week So have our meeting with our boss on the Fridays as opposed to the Mondays, so that Mondays we can come into the week with a better attitude. So sometimes we have to shift some things in our schedules that we are trying to avoid to another day in the week, so that we can avoid the Monday blues. Um, the other thing is that if we know that we have some difficult times on Mondays, we can plan better and prepare ourselves on Fridays. So if we have a staff meeting that's challenging on Mondays, now maybe on Fridays we can better prepare identify what the stresses are in that meeting, deal with those stresses before we leave the job on Friday. So when we get back to Monday, we have already jumped through the hurdles of the things that we find very difficult to deal with. So schedule your challenging work and tasks before the end of the week, or on Fridays, or just move and shift your timetable altogether and put some things that are less joyful on a later day in the week, and put at the beginning of the week some of the things that you prefer to do, you have more pleasure in doing, so that you get a better start to your week. Now, we do understand that some of us are not in control of our work weeks. I'm talking at this point, I know, making an assumption that we are managers or things like that, but there are some of us that are not at the top of the totem pole, and we don't have the luxury of shifting the unpleasant task or things like that to another day. So, what do we do then when we have no choice but to deal with the unpleasantness? Well, one of the things we can all do, regardless of where we are on the job totem pole, we can reframe the situation. We can try to take another look at the situation. And so instead of thinking it and calling it, Blue Monday, maybe we could say Victorious Monday, and challenge ourselves to look at it from how can I position myself to gain victory in these areas where I've been having challenges. So if you can change the actual circumstances, we can always change how we view the situation. And by changing the way we view the situation, we can change the way we feel, and obviously change the way the start we have to our week. The other thing is that some of us have, like, I would say, less positive outlook on life than others. So we can challenge ourselves to change the outlook, and also to start to focus on those things within our environment that we have control over. What can I do to make money enjoyable for me? So maybe even if you can't change the things that's going on at work, you can change what's going to happen after work, and start having rewards and positive experiences at the end of the day that will make your Monday worthwhile. So you can say, okay, I'm going to have a difficult time this morning, but at the end of the day, I love to listen to jazz, so I'm going to make it Jazz Monday. And every day after work, I'm going to go out and sit up and listen to jazz and have whatever it is that you have. For me, will probably be a cup of tea. But if you drink wine or whatever you drink, I'm going on at the end of my day. And so Monday is no longer going to be Blue Monday. It's going to be Jazz Monday. Or it may be family night. And we're going to shift our family night from going out on Friday nights. And at the end of Mondays, I'm going to have that reward of spending quality time with my children and my spouse or my girlfriends or significant others. And we're going to go out and we're going to celebrate that we made it through Monday. So if you don't have the ability to change your day around, then look at how you can change the end of your day and make it a rewarding day. So if you're just tuned in, we're really talking about Blue Mondays, and how the fact is that Blue Mondays, or why it may seem like something that's insignificant, Blue Mondays, something that we have adverse feelings to going to work, and we have feelings of anxiety, sadness, and stress, that there are things that we can do as individuals that can shift our experience on Blue Mondays and make them a better Monday. You would be surprised. I challenge you to go tomorrow and ask the people in your job how many people have Blue Mondays. You will find that it is a very common occurrence. There are lots of job dissatisfaction. There are a lot of people that are working in jobs because they need the money, but they're not fulfilled. And so Blue Mondays are something that I believe is coming a lot more common. There are many jobs are now got very toxic environments. And so people are struggling. And it's because of conversations that I've had with people that I decided I would talk about Blue Monday today and empower you to say that even if you can't change your circumstances, we can all change our outcomes and we can learn to shift our experiences by changing our mindset and looking at how we can reward ourselves on Monday. So we're looking at Blue Mondays, and just to reiterate, we said we have to identify the problem. Once we know the problem, then we can determine our response to the problem. Sometimes it means that we prepare for Monday on Fridays. Sometimes it means that we reframe our thinking about it, and instead of calling it Blue Monday, make it some other kind of Monday. And I want to say that Blue Mondays, while we're talking about it in the marketplace, there are children that also have Blue Mondays. And so, what do you do for a child that raises up on Mondays? They don't want to go to school. They feel lethargic. They're crying. They're clinging. They're refusing to separate from parents. Again, we have to start with identifying the problem. There are many, many children today that are being bullied within school environments. And so on the weekends, they're home, they feel safe and calm in the environment with their families. And then when Monday morning comes, or Sunday night, they start to think, oh my God, I'm going to go back to school again. I'm going to endure name calling. I've got to endure being isolated from the other children. I've got to endure being bullied. So sometimes when you see children going through these things as well, you've got to understand that school refusal, which may be the child's way of identifying the Blue Monday, it's also a symptom that something is going on in the school environment that the child cannot deal with. Now, sometimes it's not necessarily that. Most of the time it's that, but sometimes it's that the child is sleeping, is tired. So we do say to parents that they have a routine for their children, and that from Sunday night to Thursday night, the children have a pattern. They know they go to bed at a certain time, they get up at a certain time. One of the things that are going on in our society right now is this whole issue of playing video games. And I know a lot of parents will say, oh, I'm so glad Johnny's in his room and, he's not out hanging out with everybody. But there are children, especially this new game, it's called Fortnite or something, that are up playing games to 3 and 4 in the morning. And so when it's time to go to school, they're just simply exhausted. So their Blue Monday is not related to anything that's happening in the school environment. It's related to what's going on in their bedroom every single night. But if you rule that out, and if your child's getting enough rest, and then your child's got a good diet and things like that, and you still find that they're having school refusal, then there's usually an indicator that there's something unpleasant going on in the school that must be dealt with. And so for children who have Blue Mondays, we have to make sure that we do all of the basic things. They get better, adequate rest, they get a healthy breakfast, that we establish a routine in their lives and things like that, that they get regular exercise, and that we develop a healthy communication pattern with our children. Because if something is going on in the school that's causing your child to have a Blue Monday, they will never tell you unless there's an open communication between you and the child. And I always, being a child specialist, encourage people not to minimize the things that their children say. I've heard a lot of people say, oh, well, since it's bullying in school, don't worry about it. But I can tell you, just up until a month ago, I was working in a public school for a month. And, there were children that were being bullied. Not only did they express a lack of desire to come to school, but they also expressed a lack of desire to be on this earth. So clinical depression in children is real and should be also distinguished from a Blue Monday. If your child has symptoms of clinical depression, you may see changes in the child's appetite. You may see changes in the child's level of functioning. You may see changes in the child's sleep pattern. The child starts expressing negative thoughts. These could be all signs and symptoms of clinical depression in a child. Just as we like to differentiate between Blue Mondays, feeling blue, and winter blues in adults, we also need to be sure that we differentiate between Blue Mondays for children and children who have clinical depression. Well, that's all we have to say for tonight. Is that Blue Mondays is something that we experience as members of society. It does have some clinical significance over time. It is something that we should look at. There are answers to Blue Mondays. You can start out by being self aware of what is that's going on in your life. You can identify what is a causal problem and then get a friend or someone to help you to look at alternatives or solutions to solving that problem. You can take the ability to reward yourself and for the end of every Monday, so you give yourself something positive to look to. You can reframe the whole issue. Instead of having Blue Mondays, think about having victorious Mondays, so that not only will you be grooving on Sunday afternoons, but you will be able to groove every single day of your life. And so, again, I want to thank you for tuning in. And I want to close off again with my lovely song from 1968. And I will hope that everybody has a chance to groove, not only on Sunday afternoons, but groove on Monday evenings. Thank you so much for tuning in to A Purpose Speaks with Dr. Sharon Apopa, looking at the topic, what is Blue Mondays? Have a wonderful evening and make sure and reward yourself for making it through this day. On Sunday afternoon. Look this song up on YouTube. Again, it is by the Rascals, and it came out, it is the Young Rascals in 1967. Have a wonderful evening.